Hello, I'm Laura McGloughlin, and today I'm going to read from my translation of The Carnivorous Plant by Andrea Mayo, published this week by 3TimesRebel Press from the Catalan. It has an intriguing structure of 81 short chapters, all numbered one, to mimic the labyrinth in which the narrator finds herself, and interspersed by 9 tales or fables of human cruelty. It's often addresses the reader directly, as Andrea tries to emerge from the relationship with the carnivorous plant, the metaphor for her lover and soon wife, and tries to make her way back to her life as she remembers it. So I'm going to read some of those short chapters now. Have you ever loved someone who didn't love themselves? Have you ever had the feeling you could save someone from desperation and darkness? Haven't you ever believed that love conquers all? Aren't you one of those people whose heart breaks when they see an injured animal trying to survive? The worst thing that can happen to a carnivore is not wanting to be a carnivore and thinking they aren't one, and insisting they aren't one, and not recognizing that their acts are the work of what they are and not what they want to be. She was a bottomless well. Even though I'd thrown my heart at her, she continued telling me, after chewing on it, without even tasting it, the thing is that you don't love me. You don't love me. You don't love me. What a refrain. And of course I loved her, but as the therapist finally told me, it's her or you. Either her or you. There are so many wars within what's called love, aren't there? The first time we met up was to go to the theatre. The play? Doubt. What a sign. Doubt. The constructive force of faith and the destructive force of defamation. Counter-accusations. Rain was forecast and she was carrying a very big red umbrella. When we came out onto the street, not a single drop was falling, but I asked her to open it. It was an excuse to walk in each other's embrace. We stayed up until the small hours. And no, I didn't sense disaster that night. Precisely for that reason I invited her into my bed, and precisely because I didn't sense disaster, she accepted. She made it clear she hadn't been with anyone for years. I should have read that as a sign of mortal danger. She was a firearm. Loaded. I was the ideal target. The truth is, I'm not hungry. Film evenings in front of the fire. She didn't let me read. You're absent when you're reading, she'd say. So cinema it was. My stomach was in knots, with no desire for dinner. I remember my fear when expressing my lack of appetite. I remember my fear. I don't know, maybe I ate too much lunch. So I have to eat dinner alone. You won't eat anything because you don't want it, and we can't have a normal peaceful Sunday evening because the princess says she doesn't fancy having dinner. But I'm here anyway, with you, by your side. You're doing it to piss me off. Please, Ibana, let's not start. Let me breathe. Let you breathe. Watch how I let you breathe right now. You can keep all your shitty air. Lettuce on the floor. Tomatoes swimming across the tiles. Oil splashed everywhere. 1 sad pepper stuck against the stucco on the wall. Some trembling radishes in a corner. She put on a jacket. Eyes spitting fire as she insulted me. You're a piece of shit, a motherfucker, that's what you are. Let me breathe, she says, and how I'll let you breathe. No one has to ask me for air. Who do you think you are? But I was just saying. You're always just saying. You're a bad person, Andrea. You're violent. Violent how? What you do is called passive violence. Read up on it. That's what it is, you hypocrite. The thing is, you won't have dinner and you ask me to leave so you can breathe. And that's what I'm doing, obeying you, see? I'm going, you asshole. That's what you are. I can't relax around you. You're a sadist. That's what you are. She packed a suitcase with some of her things and left. In time, I came to realize this was a strategy her father used to use to abuse and leave immediately. In the middle of a winter's night, she started walking along a dark road and covered the 5 kilometers from the house where we were to the nearest hotel. Or so I supposed, because she'd done it so many other times for similar reasons. So I thought, because of course however many times I called her mobile she didn't answer, and however many times I went out searching I didn't find her. Afterwards she'd want to fuck, and I'd not want to even kiss her. So many insults and shoves and hair pulling and slaps. So much fear. So much contempt. She started to check whether I was wet when I got into bed. At night she'd touch my cunt as soon as I lay down, just to know. You're not wet. You're dry. You don't love me. You've never loved me. You don't love me, that's for sure. Then tell me, why am I with you? If I don't love you, leave me. A blow wherever she reached first, or a kick, and then leaving the bed, leaving home, not returning all night. It reached a point where I'd even want her to get angry and storm out, just to leave me alone, to be able to sleep, not having to have her lying on my body. You're weighing on me a bit, in the middle of the night, suffocating. See, you don't love me anymore. To be left alone, maybe even masturbate. Sometimes thinking about her, what utter lunacy. For how much I'd loved her, for how much I could have loved her and would now be impossible. Every day was more difficult. I couldn't die by her side, but I didn't know how to leave her either. She did. She left me again and again. She'd say, "This is over." She'd say it after clouting me and insulting me and ridiculing me. "This is over." That was her trick. Then I'd go after her and say, "No, what do you mean it's over? We can make it. We could be happy. Why can't you just believe that I love you?" But a carnivorous plant doesn't need to be loved, but feared. So every night before getting into bed, I'd go to the toilet, spit on my hand a few times and thoroughly wet my cunt, to save myself the shouts, save myself the insults, save my life, dead inside, but wet. You were faking. You didn't come. You're lying to me as usual. It was impossible not to deceive her. It had to begin one day or other. I knew very well her daughter was living a lie, the poor thing, saying she was going to university but skipping all her classes, claiming she'd passed subjects she hadn't even attended. I felt so sorry for her, tall and thin and pretty but twisted and fearful. Who could survive those fits of rage? Imitating those of Ibana's father, who'd beaten them, her and her sisters, to the point of terrorizing them. It seems he left one of them simple-minded and made her into a carnivore. Of course, from time to time I defended myself. Once, while she was beating me, I shoved her off me and she fell down the stairs. I thought, now she'll die and keep destroying my life. Yet at the same time, I felt a primal sense of relief. No one will believe she committed suicide. Easier to think she slipped and fell. A perfect explanation. She stayed alive. So whole. Always alert, even while she was sleeping. If I was agitated in my sleep, she'd wake up, then wake me to ask, "What were you dreaming? About who? What are you hiding from me?" "You didn't come. You were faking your orgasm. It was a little one," I'd say. Then she put her hand on my cunt. Stop lying. You're not even wet. You've fucked so much in your life you can't do it anymore. I felt like first throwing up and then replying, I can't bear you. I just can't anymore. What are you, a holy virgin who's only fucked those who got close to you, those poor things who risked their lives? How I envy your ex-husband and your ex-lovers, all free. How the fuck did they get out of here? How did they do it? It was a little one. I don't know. Maybe I'm tired. I felt like dying right there. Before I married her, you touched me, you're marrying me. A friend, also a painter, called me. Robin called me and told me, I know from a reliable source that she swallows her companions. She's a praying mantis. So he said, and I laughed. I replied, how do you know? I can't tell you. Oh, the usual anonymous comment. Mind your own business, Rob. But I'm telling you in all seriousness. I know for sure she eats people who go to bed with her. She pulls out their intestines and ties them around their necks and strangles them. She starves their brains of oxygen. She keeps the brains for herself and then swallows them whole, little by little, as if she were the snake in The Little Prince. You remember that drawing, don't you? I didn't let him finish. I thought, what's really happening is he's angry at losing our cinema sessions and the dinners we'd eat from time to time at his place before having no-string sex. So I cut him off and declared, leave me be. You're jealous. And he said, that too. But I swear I'm calling you because I'm your friend. And this kind of thing is what friends are for. I didn't want to listen to him, but I couldn't forget it. And sometimes, while she was insulting me or scorning me with silence and obscene gestures, on our own or in public, I'd remember Robin, and what of course we'd never discussed again. I'd be reminded of my friend and silently ask him for help. Please, please. But I was ever deeper inside, ever further from the exit. The world seemed more and more distant, and I believed in myself less and less, and more I wanted to die. More and more. Everything in negative. The only person in the world who dared to insult my grandmother, without having known her. She called her a humbug. She said that my grandmother's philosophical theories were nothing more than a cowardly way of justifying her incoherent and dependent life. She dared say that. And my mother didn't love me, she said. My mother, who had died so young and who she hadn't known either. Not that she knows love. Ibana's never known it exists. It's as alien to her as the gods. Any god. Carnivores don't have souls. How could they have? My sister, who'd always tried to make friends with her, was cold and a crook. My friends were all freeloaders. That was her plant teeth gliding and closing over me. And now you'll say, you should have got out of there. Of course. So easy. Exactly what I used to say before falling inside. When I was among you. Why doesn't she just leave? But it's like climbing into a helicopter with all that noise and realizing that only the controls manned by the other pilot work and wanting to jump but not having a parachute and not being able to see the ground because of the distance and speed. And the noise. So much noise. It's deafening. We stay put to think. We stay put to gather strength. We stay put in case something comes to mind. We don't ever believe it's forever. We stay put out of shame because somehow you end up persuaded that you're to blame. It's not me, it's you. We stay put because we know that somehow or other it will all end. And you wait and watch and think. And think and watch and wait. At some point, the carnivorous plant will be careless, especially if we pretend we've stopped fighting, that we're no more than a shadow by now. If we mimic her gestures, her tastes, if we limit ourselves to her world and even admit that she is the maker of the little of ourselves that remain standing, if we show we are aware of being nothing, that she has saved our lives, that nothing is possible without her. Because the promise of saving your life has always been there, in the background, since the beginning. And what does saving your life mean, if not promising you there is a place where no one will ever hurt you? No one will ever hurt you here. Come closer. And you come. No one will ever hurt you here. Only me. But you don't say that last part. Often that painting I made for the bow cabin of a yacht that I titled "No One Will Save Your Life" came to mind. But who isn't vulnerable? Who doesn't need to let themselves fall, eyes closed and fearless, once in a while?